Welcome to my channel. This is the Diamond Chrysalis, aka Divested Diamonds. This is divestment with purpose, and you have arrived. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me. Please do me a favor and click the like button as you watch this video. Thank you. Thank you kindly. So today's video is quite disturbing. Now, I know that we're living in hard times and things are difficult for a lot of people. I think the situation took a turn for the worst during and after the pandemic. What we saw during that time was a magnification of already existing issues being brought to the surface because we were forced to deal with whatever our underlying problems were, whether we wanted to face them or not. DV numbers went up, divorce numbers increased, people's mental health declined, and sadly, that still continues. Red rum was and still is on the rise. With that said, the degeneracy among every group of people, every racial group, continues to exist. It doesn't help that people take joy in filming literally everything while posting it to social media for an opportunity to go viral. It sickens me and it saddens me how morally bankrupt the world has become. There is definitely a shift and a different kind of energy that has taken over the world. This energy is dangerous and it's dark. And honestly, I don't know where we're going. I do not know where exactly we're going to end up as a people, especially if this isn't fixed. Right now, if you're a parent and don't know or don't care what your kids get up to or how they behave in public, you are contributing to the degeneracy as well. Some of you may have seen this story, so let's talk about it. A 9th grade student in Rockdale County, Georgia, has been charged with aggravated battery after attacking her high school teacher. Video footage shows a student arguing with English language arts teacher Tawana Turner in a classroom at Heritage High School on January 26th. Ms. Turner suffered knee and leg injuries as well as a broken leg. The president of the Georgia Federation of Teachers said, she thinks the student and parents should be held accountable as violence against teachers becomes seemingly more common. I absolutely agree with this statement. Ms. Turner was reportedly covering a class in the place of a co-worker on the morning of Thursday, January 26th. She spoke to a student about her behavior, who then stood up and proceeded to attack her. Let's take a look.
You're not gonna talk to me like that.
Wow,
You're not gonna talk to me like that.
Kick through the.
Don't talk to me like that. You're not gonna talk to me like that. You dead ass playing in my face right now. You need to give her a
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my God.
Don't put your hands on me. Yeah, I swear to God, if you don't get your hands, put your hands on me. Get your hands on me. I'm just so swinging now.
Oh God damn!
Here's Here's my unpopular opinion. If you have children and they behave this way in public, you have failed as a parent. If you have children and they talk back to other adults in this disrespectful fashion, you have failed as a parent. It's easy to tell other people to mind their own business while exclaiming that you can't be told how to raise your kids, how it's nobody's business but your own. But see, that's where you're wrong. This kind of behavior might start in the privacy of your home, but it filters its way into the rest of society to where everybody else is affected by it. We all have excuses and reasons as to why certain things turn out the way that they do. The world does not care about your excuses. We all have problems at the end of the day, some more than others, but that's life. Unleashing your defective spawn into society and allowing them to run wild like a pack of animals might be normal to you, but it's intolerable to the rest of us. There's no reason why anyone should have to feel unsafe at a place of work because of such behavior from students. A lot of your children are menaces to society and are out of control. This is why people who can't afford to have children shouldn't have them at all. And I'm not talking about afford in terms of finances alone. If you don't have time to raise your kids, you can't afford to have them. Children are not things that you can have for decorative purposes. They are human beings that need nurturing and much needed attention, and that includes discipline. This is becoming an issue because there are far too many of you who can't be bothered to do your job as parents. A lot of these kids are being raised by outside influences, including the internet and I guess themselves, and it's evident that these methods aren't working. All children are deserving of good, active parents who truly care about their well-being. Not all parents deserve to have children. This is why it's very important to be mindful of those you choose to have children with. It's not just the lack of discipline or home training that leads to this kind of behavior. Be careful whose semen you choose to receive. Some people carry dark energy, and it translates itself through your children. And I'm not saying that this is what happened in this girl's case, but fill in the blanks. Who you choose to procreate with matters. Some of you women out there see the red flags, but choose to ignore them. I don't understand why some people don't value their own DNA. So far, it's the only thing that you own where you get to make a choice to replicate or not. What could possibly be expected from children who come from degenerate households? If the person that you have chosen to have a child or children with has a history of violence, going in and out of jail or prison, has genetic disorders or defects, or a family full of people with extreme mental health issues, what quality of children do you think you're getting by breeding with that person? Black women, we need to do better. There are those of you who don't care what quality of person you choose to have children with, and then later on complain about being bamboozled. Very little thought is put into the what ifs when it comes to having children with some of these men. We all need to care about who we share our DNA with, because having children that may have genetic traits that can't be reversed is also an issue. You may think you're having a personal or private experience until your kid goes out into the world and causes mayhem. Is it fair to the rest of society that some of you recklessly unleash your dangerously uncouth children onto the rest of us? No, this woman, I'm sure, went to work that day, unaware what the day had in store for her. No one should ever have to put up with this kind of behavior in their place of work. Some of you cannot even deal with your own spawn and are such bad parents that you have no clue what's going on in your kids' lives. And this goes for both men and women. This is why your kids are unruly and disrespectful to other adults. Talking to adults disrespectfully with no ounce of home training must never be tolerated. This should be embarrassing to any parent who has kids that behave in this atrocious manner. I'm surprised that this young lady, if I can call her that, didn't spit in her teacher's face, because that's the kind of behavior I've come to expect from these uncouth children of lazy and bad parents. If I were to guess what this young lady's future looks like, I would have to say that if she has no accountability at all in her life, a life of Tyrone and prison are definitely her next phase. This was so disgusting on so many levels. It was difficult for me to watch. Violence should never be anyone's first response unless your life is in danger, unless your life is being threatened. But in her case, she wasn't being threatened. I see a girl who's been parentally unmanaged, allowed to get away with bad behavior, with a huge sense of entitlement. Like I said, if you can't afford to have children and take care of them properly, please avoid unleashing your defective spawn on the rest of us, because we shouldn't have to deal with your personal mistakes, especially not in a place of work. This girl is no different from the Pookies, Ray Rays, and Gloctaviuses of this world. I support Black women and girls, but I don't support this attitude or behavior. More often than not, we tend to have a softer approach towards young Black women in this space. And part of the reason for that is because we are women, right? We are grown Black women who understand their plight a lot more than anybody else would. We give them grace and chance after chance to do better. But we also have to understand that there are those of them who cannot be saved. Just because she's Black doesn't mean she can do better. Some are a lost cause. And if you've ever seen any videos on WorldStar, you will know what I'm talking about. I think it's time for us to accept that not everyone can be saved. Ms. Turner, at the time of this video recording, is still recovering in hospital from her injuries. I can't imagine how much that hospital bill is going to be, insured or not. These are extra expenses that this woman did not need. And as is always the case, a GoFundMe has been set up to help with those expenses. And I don't want to hear anything about this girl being a kid and how she didn't know what she was doing. At 14 or 15 years old, she's old enough to know better. She's old enough to know right from wrong. My issue here is that this behavior is becoming increasingly common with these kids, and no one should have to put up with your degenerate kids. You see, this is what a lot of people do not understand. It becomes everyone else's problem when the public are being asked time and time again to help pay for expensive hospital bills or funerals. What do you think GoFundMe is? It's a publicly funded platform where members of society, members of the public, give to a cause to help those who cannot afford whatever they need. My thing is, if this young lady felt mistreated in any way, she should have had enough sense to report her issue to the principal or her parents. Instead, she chose violence and disrespect as the solution to her problem. Enough already. The world shouldn't have to pacify your badly behaved kids simply because you failed at being parents. When you choose not to address whatever trauma your kids are experiencing, don't put that on the rest of us to have to deal with. This is also part of the reason there's a current shortage of teachers nationwide. Because who in their right mind wants to go to work and have to deal with this? They don't pay them enough for this nonsense. In 2020, 10% of teachers reported that students had threatened them with injury. Another 6% reported that a student had physically attacked them. These teachers are not your personal therapists. If your kids are having behavioral issues, do your job as parents to fix that. It's not up to the rest of the world to parent your kids. It's yours. You take care of it. You brought them into this world. It's your responsibility to do it. All I can say at this point is I wish Ms. Turner well and hope she makes a full recovery. You know, it's just sad that after dedicating 27 years to your career, it took one angry bird to disrupt her entire life. And the sad part of it is that this situation was completely avoidable. Such a shame. I personally believe that due to the severity of this issue, the school should follow through with harsh punishment. If this is how she usually behaves, and I don't think that this is her first time behaving in this manner in terms of disruption and disrespect, she should be permanently excluded from this school altogether. She might be young, yes, but a lot of these kids carry grown-ass demon energy. So yeah, she should be punished by law and never to return to the school again. Just my opinion. Again, if parents actually did their job, the rest of society wouldn't have to deal with this nasty behavior. And speaking of nasty behavior, it seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. I know that some of you have seen this story, but we'll talk about it anyway. A similar incident to the one I've just talked about happened again, except this time it involved kids on a school bus. This situation happened in Florida where a 9-year-old was pummeled by a 15-year-old. And I mean, he made simple work of this girl. I'll leave the link to that video in the description bar below because the level of violence is too overwhelming. But I'll go right ahead and describe it for you. In the actual video, you can see the 15-year-old boy pounding this girl's head in while the 9-year-old covers her head and face to protect herself from injury. None of the other students are helping out, but you can also hear one or two of them say, "Stop, stop." Moments later, another boy steps in and starts punching this girl. The claim here is that the 9-year-old girl hit the 15-year-old boy first. I'm not sure exactly why she would do that, but that's what's being alleged. My thing is, it doesn't matter if this girl hit him first. She is 9. He is 15. That's a considerable age gap that should come with some level of maturity. As the older one in this equation, he should have restrained himself and not used aggression as his first response. But again, this is little Tyrone we're talking about here, and his little friend Pookie. A lot of these kids carry demonic energy. They can't seem to help themselves every time they see an opportunity to act like hooligans. What I would like to know is where were all the adults in all of this? Why was this even allowed to take place? But again, this goes back to the previous story as well, and what happens when society is constantly dealing with aggressive, unmanageable youth. Care goes completely out the window because, again, how many times can this continue to happen before people get fed up of dealing with such deplorable behavior? When kids are left unmanaged and allowed to do whatever they want, these are the results. No good ever comes of it. And before one of you dust buckets hops into the comment section waving your STD cock around saying, well, who's raising these kids? Isn't it you, Black women? Do you think that that's the only reason? The only reason? The only reason a child would turn out this way because he or she was raised in a single-parent household by a woman? Some of you need to go back to school and stay in school right along with your kids. Anytime you mushmouth nakers say that, it simply shows the depth of your depravity. You all love to preach on how a two-parent household is better for kids, and I agree to some extent. But here's what you need to understand. It's not the presence of two adults raising children that later cultivates good, upstanding citizens. The quality of child rearing, as well as the capability of those involved, is what matters. You can grow up in a two-parent household and still end up degenerate. I've seen this time and time again. And part of the reason for this is that a lot of people tend to have children for selfish reasons. Some of you are trying to replace the love that you didn't get as children, hoping that those kids would fill your emptiness. But when you realize that this is not a remedy for your issues, it's too late. You fucked up your kids already. Some of you are emotionally vacant. You are so depleted on an emotional level due to past trauma. You have nothing to offer your kids. When you have adults with unresolved issues, which is majority of people, to be honest, trying to raise children, guess what you're going to get? A total disaster. Sometimes that disaster may be salvageable because you have kids out there who are so smart they would weather the storm to try and be better than their parents, and sometimes they succeed. But let's face it, those kids with that level of drive and that mindset, who later grow up to be adults, are very few and far between. But let's go back to this notion that a two-parent household is better. And I'm not saying that it's not. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of people are under the illusion that this family structure guarantees outcomes. And I'm here to tell you that that's not entirely true. I mean, sure, you can grow up in that environment and still have an absentee parent. Sometimes both. You can still end up raising yourself in a two-parent household, or your mother can be a single parent in a two-parent household. Again, while it's important to get the love and support from both parents, it isn't always possible, even while living under the same roof. Very few parents manage to get it right. Even so-called great parents don't get it 100%. Why, you ask? Because there is no such thing as a perfect parent. Mistakes are going to happen, but how you bounce back from those mistakes is what really matters. What people need to focus on is at least making sure that the emotional damage to their children isn't too severe. There will be some damage whether you like it or not. But if that damage is kept low impact or minimal to where they are able to be good, functional human beings in society, you've done your work as a parent. That's all you can do. No one's asking for perfection here because it doesn't exist, especially when dealing with a different personality or personalities in the case of multiple kids. Because again, we are very complicated as human beings. And while it's impossible to understand your children completely, they would benefit tremendously from your love, support, and knowing that they have somewhere to go to for safety. Another recurring issue is child abandonment in out-of-wedlock relationships. It's always easy to blame the mother, the one who stayed and tried to take care of her kids. It's impossible as a single parent to do an exceptional job when the job itself requires two people. There are 24 hours in a day and only so many ways you can split yourself. So this constant need to blame single mothers for everything absolves the absentee fathers of responsibility. Showing up once a year with a cheap gift for your kids isn't parenting. Having 1,000 excuses as to why you can't be there is something that mentally destroys kids. Children thrive in stable environments, but giving your children hope that you will do better as a parent and not follow through on that promise is emotionally, mentally, and psychologically damaging to your kids. So when it really comes down to it, the absentee parent actually causes the bulk of the damage by not being there. Kids who grow up with a single parent where loss of another parent is involved, or just straight up abandonment, and this includes adopted kids, they will tell you how much of a void there is in not knowing or getting to spend time with the other parent. Most of you want to have unprotected sex, but find the consequences inconvenient. Your children are inconvenient because they are the result of something you'd rather forget. And that's a shame. And the sad part of this is that it's so easy to not have kids. Now, back to this little 9-year-old who got pummeled. The mother naturally was extremely horrified. I mean, who wouldn't be? And for those of you who were wondering what ethnicity this little girl was, she's Latina. This is her mother. And these are the pictures of the little girl after her savage beating. It's disgusting. Go and watch that video and tell me if that was an extreme rage. This is part of the reason little girls and women are being deleted every 5.5 hours by Black males. Something's not right, and they start young. I still think that someone needs to have an in-depth look into that Y chromosome in these types of males, because that is as far from normal behavior as you could possibly get. And speaking of males, women are slowly being erased by them. Our very existence is in danger, ladies. If you think that these are just talking points, it'll never happen, this is a joke, please wake up. It started off with victimhood, then it moved to shaming. And the next phase was changing the law. And after that came losing your livelihood for telling the truth and standing up for sex-based rights. You know where I'm going with this. The T in the rainbow community has become so problematic that, quite frankly, they just want to do away with women altogether. Vagina envy is very real. Autogynephiles, or autogynephilia, is in fact a real thing. As the world continues to embrace feelings over facts, while excluding women from their own spaces, women will find themselves drowning in misogyny, as is always the case, except this time, XY are coming for your very existence. I would like to take a trip across the pond to the United Kingdom and talk about what recently happened in Scotland. This is Adam Graham. He's a 2-time arist. He likes to take women by force because, well, why not? He likes it, and it gives him pleasure. He decided to switch genders before appearing in court for R-ing 2 women, 2 mothers. These women did not deserve this, but here we are. He now calls himself Isla Bryson. His own estranged wife said, and I quote, "It's a sham for an easier life," end quote. And this was according to the Sun UK. His estranged wife also said, gender switch Isla Bryson never mentioned feelings of being born in the wrong body. Now, here's where things get sticky. It was originally reported that he wouldn't be put in a women's prison even after he chose to identify as, quote unquote, a trans woman. That seems fair because, of course, he is indeed a man, playing dress up. And like his wife said, he was doing this for attention and an easier life in prison. Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish First Minister, said, and I quote, "It would not be appropriate for me, in respect of any prisoner, to give details of where they are being incarcerated. But given the understandable public and parliamentary concern in this case, I can confirm to Parliament that this prisoner will not be incarcerated at Cornton Vale Women's Prison, which is Scotland's only all-female prison, right?" She continues, "I hope that provides assurance to the public." End quote. Now, any guesses as to where he was housed after this statement? The same prison that Nicola Sturgeon claimed he would not be housed. After receiving backlash from women's rights groups and other campaign bodies, she then realized that this trans excuse had gone a little too far, that this trans excuse was never going to fly. And naturally, people were infuriated because besides how he identifies, he's still a man with a penis. And the reason he was in prison to begin with was because he doesn't respect the boundaries of women. He'll use force to get what he wants from them. It should be a matter of common sense to not house him with women. The claim, of course, was that he was isolated from other prisoners by housing him in a segregation unit. But that means nothing. That's not the point, is it? The public had been lied to, and women's rights are constantly being violated. Where is the care and concern for the rights of women? He is a danger to women. Do these politicians care? Absolutely not. They just want to play the woke game because it keeps them in office. It's disgusting and shameful when a woman can't even align herself with her own gender or empathize with those two women who were violated. She chose her political career over the rights of people who look like her. Absolute disgrace. And when confronted about this, here's what she had to say.
I think you just referred to Isla Bryson using the word her. Does that mean you do, in fact, think she is a woman?
Anything into... I am trying to rationally...
Individual,
look,
but you started saying her.
What I'm trying to do is address the issues rather than take it into the kind of headline generating. I'm trying to rationally deal with the issues that arise here, and that's what I'll continue to try to do.
Why did you say that?
I can't remember. I'll take your word for it.
It sounds like
fine.
a Freudian
Look,
slip.
I'm
you
trying
think of
not
Isla
to.
Bryson as a woman. Is that not the case?
But what I'm saying is, Isla Bryson calls herself a woman. But what I'm trying to say is, in the context of the prison service, that is not the relevant factor here. The relevant factor is the crime that the individual has committed and has been convicted of.
We've all been asking you, and you've been running away from the question. We have been asking you for days. Do you regard Isla Bryson as a woman?
She regards herself as a woman. I regard the individual as a rapist, and in the context
to say whether
the context of the prison service, what matters is that the individual was convicted of rape, and that is what we're talking about here, and that's what I will continue to focus on.
Shameful. It's actually sad that some men are more supportive of women than some of these women are. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak recently appeared on the Piers Morgan show, and when the whole transgender debate came up, this is what he had to say.
When you see what's happening in sport, where you see trans women athletes demolishing women, female athletes, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I think that doesn't strike most people as being fair, right? So that's why, when it comes to these questions, biological sex matters. Now that we can and will have compassion and tolerance and understanding for everybody who is thinking about transitioning and changing their identity and gender. But for me, when it comes to whether it's sex, whether it's women's spaces, whether it's prisons, biological sex really matters.
This response is like night and day. You see, people need to understand that this is not about taking away the rights of trans people, trans women in particular. This is about preserving sex-based rights for women, which we have every right to do. Trans women should exist in their own capacity without impeding upon the rights of others. But it's so hard to do that because this community is built on the degradation and erasure of women. Vagina envy is very real. A lot of these ex-wives think it's easy being a woman, but they have no idea because they have never been and will never be women. Womanhood is not a feeling. It's not wigs, makeup, wearing dresses. It's much deeper than that. And there's a spiritual aspect to being a woman that no man could ever tap into. Because again, they don't have the essence or the depth of a woman. Men and women are indeed very different. And to ignore that is a complete disservice and disregard to our existence. You can live your life however you choose, but womanhood is not a costume to be played with. Ignoring facts in favor of feelings is erasing women's rights. Bulldozing your way into women's spaces as an XY is taking away women's rights. Women have every right to have spaces that are exclusive to women and women alone without being shamed or called transphobic. Initially, a lot of women tolerated and supported this community, thinking that they were being allies, but most of them soon realized that there is no end to this madness. The more you give, the more they take. The more they take, the less rights women have. It has nothing to do with women not wanting, quote unquote, trans women to exist. You have every right to. All we ask is that you leave everything that's related to us alone. Because you see, there's always this inherent need to blur the lines and play pretend. As women, we're supposed to pretend that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. But all of that is garbage and gibberish. If you listen carefully to their rhetoric, there's always some study that was done to counteract facts. Even top universities these days have no credibility. They have jumped on the bandwagon because placating a bunch of men with real mental health issues is somehow more important for them because they get to be part of an even bigger agenda. This grift is a well-oiled, lucrative Ponzi scheme that will get a lot of people's lives ruined while the powers that be laugh all the way to the bank. There are many entities that are in bed together in the recruitment of mentally ill people, making money off of the backs of mentally ill people, selling them a dream and rewarding them with a nightmare. Look at the number of people who are now detransitioning because of this grift. And what really grinds my gears are men who do videos exposing this nonsense, but proceed to ask women, well, what are you going to do about it? As if women haven't fought long and hard enough for basic human rights. You're men, aren't you? These laws allowing this to continue happening are being passed by majority men, aren't they? My question is, why are the men in charge not doing anything about this? Oh, wait. It's because women being at the bottom will always benefit the patriarchy. It's because a lot of these people pushing this agenda are feeding the patriarchy, and none of these changes are affecting you as men. You also have legislation in place still forcing women to bear children that they do not want, children that are a product of trauma in cases of rape, incest, and other types of sexual deviancy, using women as vessels to breed the population by force while shaming women from having autonomy over their own bodies. The more things change, the more they stay the same. If it's not one thing, it's another, which begs the question, when will women truly be free? Is there any hope when you have men touting this kind of nonsense?
Biological sex is fake. Yes, we all know that gender roles are fake, but do not say to a trans person, biologically male, born female, male-bodied. No, 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 no. There is no biological criteria for gender that is both universal and a binary in human beings. Where does that leave us? Free.
And of course, there are men such as the following who are speaking truth and facts, being trolled because facts are too painful for those who live in the land of make-believe.
So I was getting a lot of negative feedback on my posts on Instagram lately. I'm not transphobic. I just don't believe in the make-believe stuff. I'm trying to keep it very professional. However, transgender men or women, whatever you want to call them, competing in women's sport is not very professional. It's cheating. You are robbing women who train from adolescence on into adulthood to compete at the college level. You have robbed them. You have cheated them. It's another way of a man abusing the system. You're 6'5", destroying these women. Mind you, like you came in, you ranked 462nd in men's. So you was a trash. You was garbage as a man in swimming. You probably should have found another event that you might have been good at. However, you become number 1 in women's swimming, college swimming. It doesn't make sense. You're not a champion. You're trash. What happened to all these feminists fighting for equal rights, women's rights, equality? This man doesn't go through what women go through. He doesn't have a period. He can't birth a child. He doesn't know what it's like to be a woman. There's so many things that he just said. Just because you throw on a wig, it don't make you a woman. You feel me? Like, it don't. And if you get mad at me for posting something like this, for being real, you know, there's a delete button. You can unfollow me. Because I'm tired of being fake. I'm tired of trying to cater to somebody who didn't even like themselves in their original body. So they want to go play dress up and pretend. And now all of a sudden, they love themselves. They're number 1 in whatever they do. So if Mike Tyson puts on a wig and goes out here and boxes women, is he still a woman or is he still a man? Like, come on now, let's be real. Like, Mike Tyson would destroy every single female. Every single female. Kevin Durant puts on a wig and goes to WNBA. He is destroying any woman he goes up against. Kevin Durant could take on 5 women at a time and destroy them. We're not equally compared at all. It bothers me because I'm a father to a little girl. Now I got to worry about some boy who couldn't cut it with the men who couldn't cut it. I'm feeling a little flamboyant today. I'm going to go put on a wig.
And now I would like to address some of you trans-identified white males in the United Kingdom and your problematic views on race. Black women, to be precise. It's clear that most of you speak from a place of ignorance. It's clear that a lot of you have somehow inherited some of your ancestors' bigotry, because I can promise you all that even in 2023, there's some underexposed individual who lives in some remote village somewhere in England, still referring to so-called black people as colored. This is not meant to be funny. There are pockets of the white population in the UK who genuinely do not know how to address Black people. I remember back in 2008 when I was at London Gatwick Airport, and this woman who was trying to catch my attention, whom I personally knew as an acquaintance, so she wasn't a total stranger, right? This woman deemed it appropriate to refer to me as the colored lady because she couldn't remember my name. When I finally turned around to listen to what she had to say, I felt the need to remind her that Black wasn't a bad word and to never, ever refer to me as colored. And when I thought about it, it made me realize that there are people in England especially who live in their own little bubbles. Because I never got this issue in Northern Ireland. They can't be bothered to interact with people of other races, Black people in particular, because they could care less. So that lack of interaction makes them extremely ignorant to a lot of things concerning Black people. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because I see the same flawed, uninformed logic with a lot of these trans-identifying males in Britain who think that they can make comparisons between Black women and trans women in the sense that they view Black women as a subcategory of humans and our womanhood being lesser to that of white women's. This here is India Willoughby. He was 50 when he decided to transition. According to what I've read, he now considers himself a cis woman. You know, the slur that they love to use on women. The reason he feels this way is because he's had gender reassignment surgery, which is ridiculous because his DNA, I can assure you, still says XY. Having gender reassignment surgery does not make you a real woman. It just means that you have a gaping wound which will never heal because you have to keep it dilated so it doesn't close up. As a woman, as a real woman, XX, no frills, I don't have to shove anything up my lady parts to keep it open because it's real, it's natural. And we all know what a woman is. An adult human female whose sex is observed at birth and confirmed as such. Sex or gender are not assigned at birth, as is popularly spouted in the degenerate sphere. They are observed. As far as I'm concerned, and as long as I can remember, sex and gender have always been used interchangeably throughout history. Before the world went digital, people had to fill out forms sometimes. And when it came to identifying yourself, you had two options. It was either sex or gender with two options, male or female. Certain forms had sex with two options to choose from, male or female. Some forms had gender with two options to choose from, male or female. It's been that way for a very long time until this confusion started going mainstream. So back to this India character. He had an exchange with a Black woman on Twitter about 3 months ago. The lady's name is Esther K. I checked out her Twitter page and she has a considerable number of followers. Her bio says she's a broadcaster and writer, and India works in television as well. Anyway, this conversation went from 0 to 100 real quick. Esther posed a question which, on a common sense level, wouldn't be considered offensive. But you know, some of these TRAs are always looking for an excuse to spout their venom because, you know, they don't like women anyway. Our very presence or existence proves their delusion because they can never be us. The question she asked was, maybe I'm being dense, but what exactly is the logic behind advertising tampons and pads to trans women? Ordinarily, that would be considered a valid question, right? A wonderful question, because biologically speaking, trans women do not possess the reproductive structure that women have to be able to have a period, right? Well, tell that to India. India was so offended by this. The rage, aggression, misogyny could be felt all across Twitter sphere. His response was as follows: "What you give, you get, Esther. I buy them to put in my ears so I don't have to listen to talentless, bigoted black women, one word, who think they're it and wouldn't be anywhere without woke. Stick that where the sun don't shine. Nasty B. That'll be expletive for female dog." Well, well, well. It didn't take long for the bigotry and misogyny to expose itself, did it? And of course, after he said all of this, he got dragged. Mostly white women were calling him out on his racism, especially this part where he tries to dehumanize her by saying, "Black woman, one word." Part of the reason, like I said earlier, why these people do this is because as black women, they don't see us as fully human. As women, they think that we are inferior to white women because they look at white women as the default. You will never hear them spout this nonsense to women of other races, but they'll do it to black women because they consider us to be the bottom of the human race. It's a similar mindset to that of the slave master who would grape a black woman and have children with her for the purpose of increasing the workforce on the plantation. You, as a black woman, were not deemed worthy enough of respect, but you were good enough to breed their spawn, which they later put to work as farm animals. As a black woman, you were deemed dirty, but somehow good enough to handle their food. Now make that make sense. Everything's fine as long as you stay in your place. These are the same psychological games that they play today, and this comment that he posted after being dragged is indicative of his mindset. He said, "Is there any reason why it's okay for Esther to point out or mock other minority characteristics but not allowed back? Seems a bit unbalanced. But then you do follow all the nutters, like most of cat Twitter. So unbalanced is your norm. How is this man a minority? Because he chose to cut off his bits and identify as a woman? He went from having male privilege as a white man in the UK to joining a community that pushes for victimhood and the erasure of women through misogynistic propaganda. So again, the justification of his behavior by trying so desperately to turn himself into a victim is something that these weak-minded men who can't operate as real men in society do when they come into women's spaces. He could have, as a mature adult, simply answered the question that Esther had asked to begin with, but chose not to because why would he be answerable to a black woman? How dare she ask that question, right? The fact that he felt offended by someone asking a valid question shows his high levels of insecurity. Men are not women. Sex cannot be changed. Even if you, as an XY, have had a sex change, that doesn't turn you into a woman. So it's extremely logical to ask why these companies would market products that are meant for biological women to biological men. It makes no sense. These companies have jumped on the bandwagon to pacify this tiny group of mentally ill individuals because there's money to be made. It doesn't matter that these males are unable to have periods. If they can pretend to be inclusive in order to have a new target market, they'll do that just for the almighty dollar. We all know that it's delusional for any biological male to say they are capable of having a period without the reproductive system of a woman. And one thing I hear a lot is, well, having a vagina doesn't make you a woman. Excuse me? Yes, it does. You can identify as whatever you want. If you were born with XX chromosomes, you are a woman. You are female. And sometimes they'll say, not all women can have children. Does that make them less of a woman? And here's my favorite. Not all women can have periods, so does that mean that those women aren't real women? As if being born XX to begin with isn't a qualifier for womanhood, even in the absence of all these things. The fact that you have to point out all these things is what makes biological women women. As someone who was born XX, the absence of a period or the incapability to bear a child does not take your womanhood away. Matter of fact, it affirms it even more because the fact that you are questioning it gives it even more validity because you understand, just like everybody else, that something should be happening. But due to some dysfunction, her body isn't able to carry out that womanly function. No one would ever question why a trans woman isn't able to have a period or give birth because it's an unnatural function for biological males. You were not meant to have a period or push out a baby because your body isn't supposed to do that. Unfortunately, for a lot of TRAs, reality seems to be their biggest enemy. And it doesn't help that the government and other entities keep encouraging this behavior because once again, women are the ones being impacted by all of this. These people are guests in our spaces, but act as though they belong there. What they've done is bulldoze their way into our spaces disrespectfully and by force while making ridiculous demands. We have every right to say no to having XY in XX spaces. And that should never be deemed as transphobic. You want respect, you demand respect, but aren't willing to give it. And do you know why that is? Because by nature, most XYs are aggressive, assertive, demanding, and misogynistic. It's just who you are at your core. Trans women aren't women. They will never be women because they are biological males who identify as women from the male perspective of womanhood. Only a woman knows what it's really like being one. I feel that women and trans women should have separate spaces because if these entities are willing to make girls and women uncomfortable and unsafe, why should we bother as women catering to this nonsense? When was it ever the woman's responsibility to protect men, to provide shelter for men? If these males cannot go to the male bathroom for fear of being attacked, why should we, as women, provide our intimate spaces as a safety net for men? These entities are making money hand over fist. So it's their responsibility to provide the TRAs with their own spaces. It's the only solution to this. They will still make a lot of money off of the agenda. And please stop with the emotional blackmail when it comes to your safety. Women are not the ones deleting you. So if a woman says to you that she would like her own space to herself with other women, how does that equate to causing you harm? Do women not have the right to be uncomfortable? This issue has nothing to do with women. Other men are the ones deleting you. Stop shaming women into accepting you into their spaces by using this as an excuse. My thing is, why piss off the majority of the population? And that includes some men because there are those of them who don't approve of this. It's horrifying. This is the slippery slope that people with common sense have been talking about for years now. I spoke on this 6 years ago, and my video was demonetized and shadow banned even after choosing my words wisely. All we're asking for as women is fairness, stripping our rights that we've worked so hard for to appease a small group of people is not going to end well. You can only push people so far. Anytime that people are forced to accept something that they don't believe in, it builds resentment. The pushback that TRAs are getting is because the majority of women do not want this. You cannot force inclusivity on people who don't see the value in it. And not only that, it doesn't benefit women at all. We've seen this inclusivity disaster throughout history, and it hasn't worked out. Changing language in an attempt to be inclusive while disrespecting women, a group of people who've existed since the beginning of humanity, is going to breed more resentment. You can't preach inclusivity to the very people whose spaces you're trying to exclude them from. Look, some of you get this and some of you don't, but here's someone who does.
You know what, you guys, I'm gonna say it, and I don't care what anyone's gonna feel about this, but I feel like I have to say something about it because I'm trans. I'm a transgender woman in South Africa, and I identify as a woman. I'm very, very aware that I'm not a real woman. I'm a trans woman, and that's how I see myself. That's how I've always viewed myself, and so forth. I have an issue with this new wave and new movement of transgender people and non-binary and whatever. I generally feel like we are the main reason, like the LGBT plus community, we are the main reason why we're not being taken seriously. I generally feel like we, especially the trans community itself, the trans non-binary community specifically, we are the ones that are causing all of this bullshit to happen, honestly. For instance, there's this debate now going on about trans women can get pregnant, trans women can breastfeed, trans women menstruate, trans women are equal to biological women, trans women can compete with biological women in sport, and so forth. That is utter bullshit. Like, you cannot deny and ulwene biology and what's facts, what's actual facts. I generally feel like we are putting ourselves in these positions where now people are starting to take us not seriously because kuko abantu abanje who are gonna think this way. It doesn't make sense, honestly. For me, as a trans woman living as a woman every day, have transitioned, still in that process, I swear to God, most transgender girls who are actually going through this whole process and so forth don't think that way. It's always these non-binary people. I just don't understand it. I don't understand this whole ideology where why do we have to compare ourselves with biological women to make us feel secure and safe and whatnot? You are a trans woman and that's just it. There's absolutely no need for us to be taking tampon. It doesn't make sense. Why do we have this need of wanting to compete with biological women? It doesn't make sense. I'm not going to say cis. I'm not going to do all of that. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, can someone explain to me why?
And after that upload, he received a lot of comments from women saying, thank you for speaking out. Because every single time women have tried to come up with the same type of common sense, they get nothing but insults and misogyny. On the flip side of that, he received a lot of backlash for telling the truth. Now make that make sense. And then, of course, there are XYs, such as the following, who are hell-bent on telling women about themselves while living in a permanent state of delusion. Let's take a listen.
Now, see, this is interesting. This is new because usually people that are transphobic will say, "Oh, I'm not transphobic," and then say something transphobic. But she says I'm transphobic and then reaffirm the idea that she's not transphobic. That's an interesting new style. Okay. Like, you literally commented on this post saying trans women don't get a period. That's not the point. Okay? That is not the point. Trans women do experience a period. But that's not the point. The point is, cis women are so transphobic, like you just displayed. And the way you're typing in caps and all these exclamations just shows. Like, it shows your transphobia is shown. Like, do you not see it? This comment just feels like, oh, I'm okay with the trans people, but as long as they know their place, as long as they know that we're the real thing, we're the blueprint, that's what your comment is giving, and that is transphobic. Hello.
Hey, DeAndre. I love you so much, but we do not have period cramps. That just does not happen. We don't have the organs to have period cramps because period cramps come from the sloughing of the uterine lining, and we don't have uteruses, so we don't get cramps. Also, moodiness, sore breast tissue, hunger cravings, acne, etc., that all just comes from hormonal changes. And puberty, it's called puberty, not a period, puberty. So yeah, if you're having cramps, you might want to get that looked at because that's really concerning and not normal at all. Again, I love you so much, but it's getting a little bit obsessed with cis women and wanting to fit in. You talk about embracing your transness, but you also act like cis women are invalid because you experience some of the same things that they do. When they're not making it about a competition, seems like you are. So, just wanted to say that. I love you so much, but it's a little weird. Okay, bye.
Period, bleeding, it's all used the same just because the patriarchy is very, very transphobic and very, very exclusive and very, very misogynistic. But the audacity for this trans woman to say, you don't seem to love yourself and you seem to want to make it a competition and you're seeming to invalidate the fact that if a person says we have similar experience, how does that invalidate someone else? If I say that I have a red ball and you have a red ball, how does that take away from you having a red ball? It is also kind of annoying how people always say, I love you, but then proceed to say something disrespectful, because that was disrespectful what you said to Viandra, as if she's the one trying to invalidate cis women, when if you look at her comments on that video, it's a lot of people saying that they're the blueprint. You want to be us, you're a male, you can't have a period. It's a lot of transphobia off of her just saying, hey, I kind of go through the same thing you go through. It's just really annoying. We have trans white women speaking so loudly and going to bat for cis women when cis women are the ones who turned it into a battlefield. She literally just say, hey, we experienced the same thing. And they were like, no, you don't. You're a man. You're a man. And here you are defending it and gaslighting us to make it seem like we're trying to take their place, or we're trying to replace them by saying we go through the same thing on some level. I hope they pick you, and I hope it's worth it. Hello?
A woman's cycle has nothing to do with the patriarchy. I will have my period whether or not the patriarchy exists. We have different terminologies for it because, well, why not? One thing I've noticed about some of these delusional trans women is that anytime someone gives them facts and tells the truth, they always bring it back to the patriarchy. The same patriarchy that they largely benefit from once they take a day off playing dress up. You do come off as someone less accepting of themselves because every time you say trans women are women, or that, quote unquote, cis women will be mad when trans women are able to have babies.
I'm sorry, this might be a hot take or whatever, but a lot of you cis women are going to be very upset when trans women are able to carry children.
It proves self-loathing. It proves how competitive you are with a group of people who are genetically different from you. The fact that you are dressed the way that you are proves your level of self-hatred because you are trying to mimic something that you're not. You coming into women's spaces and wanting to be treated exactly like them is discriminatory in itself. What you are basically saying is that as a biological male, you can cosplay as a woman, do whatever you want in women's spaces while continuing to push the rights of women who may not agree with you down the drain. Anytime women's rights are ignored to make room for you, you are indeed invalidating women. You can have a lot of things in common with other human beings, but that doesn't mean that you have to take from them. For someone who spends a lot of time complaining about the patriarchy, you sure do expel a lot of that toxic masculinity that most people complain about today. There is nothing transphobic about stating facts. The problem with you and people in your community is that if someone isn't placating to your delusions, they are automatically labeled some sort of phobic. Last I checked, a phobia was a fear of something. We're not afraid of you. We just find you and your ways incredibly offensive and irritating. So-called cis women didn't turn anything into a battlefield. We were attacked, and all we did was defend what's ours. The same way that you wouldn't allow some rando off the street to just come into your house and help themselves to your things is the same sense of violation we felt when you came into our home, our spaces, wearing our skin and telling us that we had to share something that you didn't help build. That individual was right. And women will pick them over you. Do you know why? Because they live in reality and understand how things work. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't pay to be manipulative and unkind to the very people you're trying to emulate. And then you have groomers such as the following, really appealing to your kids in a creepy way. Let's take a look.
Hi kids! There's no such thing as a boy or a girl, and I can prove it. So gather around the family, the parents, everybody, answer my questions. You either say boys or girls. Who's usually taller? Oh, boys? Okay, but you've met some short boys, right? You met some tall girls. So usually boys are taller, but not always. Okay, who likes the color pink? Girls? Okay, but you've met girls who don't like pink. And you met boys who do like pink. So usually girls like pink, but not always. Everything you can think of that makes a boy or makes a girl is usually, but not always. And some of them are not even usually. Where does that leave you? Free. You get to like what you like. You get to be who you are. Maybe you're even like me, and you're not a boy or a girl.
It's all very concerning. I'll say, protect your children and protect yourselves, and be mindful what your kids are doing on their phones, their tablets, their computers, while browsing the internet. These are dark times with multiple agendas being pushed. The pedos are already coming through. Women's rights are at risk, and children's rights are at risk as well. Balenciaga was not the beginning, but there's a very dangerous, predatory, insidious darkness to that brand and many others. They have been pushing for this for quite a while now. And if you want to know who's responsible for a lot of this, follow the money. And to those Black women who are constantly saying, well, this has nothing to do with Black women. My question is, are you not a member of society? One thing we all need to be aware of is, if these trends are going on here, you can bet your bottom dollar that the rest of Europe is already participating in this. If it's going on in Europe, it's only a matter of time before it gets here. Now ask yourself this: who gets the short end of the stick Every time shit hits the fan, believe it or not, it's already here. It's been here. And what we can do as Black women is withdraw support from all these companies or organizations or politicians who support these agendas. It doesn't benefit us by turning a blind eye. If you haven't seen my community post on the TRA issue where, quote unquote, Black women are taking over Hollywood, take some time to read what I had to say. At present, they are already coming for your uteruses with these womb and vaginal transplants. Yes, you heard that correctly, but that's a video for another day. On that note, what are your thoughts on what's been discussed here today? Please leave your thoughts and comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And remember, ladies, keep your eyes open and ears to the ground. There's an attack on womanhood, and it's spiritual. Tap into the divine or whatever methods bring you peace and enlightenment. Don't ignore what's right in front of you, because if you think that this is someone else's problem, ask yourself this: how long before that problem shows up at your doorstep? Thank you so much for watching. Love and light to you all. Divest like a butterfly, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, diamonds.